Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. Hey there, ladies.
Hello.
Hello. As always, I am joined by my fabulous co-host, Kate Sitars. Hello, Kate. And today we also have the pleasure of being joined by CCA student and professional copywriter, Jenni DeWitt. Hi, Jenni.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great.
Yay.
Excited to be here today.
Oh, good. We're excited to have you. We wanted to bring Jenni in because, well, first of all, because she's a fabulous person. And second of all, because she has an interesting journey in terms of where her copywriting career began, where she ended up taking it, and also, quite frankly, in the speed that you have been able to do it. We were just looking, and you joined the CCA in the funny thing is actually we looked it up, and I personally had a very difficult time figuring out that the number 4 meant April, and then had a difficult time remembering it. So that's how this morning is going, everybody. April 6th of 2021, which really is not that long ago.
That's crazy.
Remembering back there, Jenni, what got you interested in copywriting to begin with? Do you remember?
Yeah, I have been writing since 2012. My youngest son was diagnosed with cancer, actually, and it's what got me into writing. I was keeping daily notes online of just updating friends and family back home, how he was doing, progress, asking for prayers. And that got me into remembering, oh yeah, I wanted to be a writer when I was little. This is really fun. And so he got better. He survived, thank the Lord.
That's
yes.
wonderful.
And so I kept writing. And once he was off treatment, then there was a marketing job that involved writing. So I wasn't going necessarily after the marketing aspect, but the writing, I just wanted something local in the small town where I lived that I could write for a living. And so started doing that and thought, oh, I really like this. And then another position came open and to go a little bit deeper. And so took that position on and started writing and doing different things, all sorts of writing. And then the pandemic, and, it's just everyone kind of needed a reset. And I think I had this desire to go a little bit broader, deeper, I guess, broader and deeper, because I had all these marketing ideas, but they just were too big for what my company needed. And I was so excited about them. And so I just was like, okay, I need to step back. I need to think. I'm a very spiritual, religious person. So I forced myself to be in this period of discernment where I was like 3 or 4 months, just stop, just think, just sit with this, because I'm all about action, as you can tell by how fast once I decided, I zoomed through it. And so came upon CCA and realized that I had been doing copywriting all along. Once I had started going back to work after my son's treatment and I had been working in marketing, I just didn't ironically have that word for it. I didn't know that was an entire career. And I love the idea of just really focusing on marketing, which I had grown so much to love, and the writing, which I had loved for a while, and going just really hyper focused on that. And so once I found CCA, it was like, this is the thing that I've been forcing myself to pause and figure out what was next. And so I basically just consumed the program. Like, I was listening in the shower, I was listening like constantly. I was in the car doing dishes. Like, I first went through the entire program and just like binge listened, I guess. I just couldn't get enough of it. It was so exactly perfectly what I was looking for and didn't know. And so watched it really fast, and then went through and took my time with each of the sections. But really, even that, I started in April, and I was going to a functional medicine doctor. And, part of the program, you look at websites and things. I'm like, oh man, I think I could make this better. And so I was so nervous. I pitched her that first time, and she was like, oh yeah, that'd be great. It was like, oh wow, that was way easier than I thought it was going to be. So that was how I got my start. And then, I think I was still wrapping up the program when I did that, but I felt like I knew enough to get going, and that went really well. And she was happy with it. I was happy with what I got paid. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I finished up the program, and I started to apply for all these different jobs on Indeed and different places. But the Mom Project, I put my resume out there to this one job. I'm like, man, this just feels like such a good fit. It was a combination of different things I had done in the past on my own and my personal life, with the marketing, with the copywriting. And so I applied for this copywriting position, and it was a great fit, got it, and worked with them. And I realized something about myself, because I had every intention of staying freelance because I like a lot of variety. I get bored if I'm not challenged. I'm constantly learning new things. And so I just was planning to do freelance like you taught us in the program. And then I just like basically fell in love with the people that I was working with, the company. And I was like, oh, this makes sense, because I'm so relational, like connection is so important to me, that I connected with the people. And I realized that trumps sort of bouncing around. Like I wanted to be all in with this one company with my own personal personality, I guess. And so there was a position that came up, and she basically was like, Jenni, you're a great copywriter, but I also think you have all this other marketing. And so they brought me on as both a marketing position and the lead copywriter. So now I still got to write, but I also get to manage other freelance copywriters and basically like get to be the person doing all of our writing. So it's been an interesting, wonderful journey.
That's amazing. So in less than 2 years, what, a year and 9 months, you've gone from being not completely new because you were writing, but, and I do have a question about that, but to being the lead copywriter for a company that you love. That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's the key thing for me that CCA, like all the skills, all of that was wonderful. But what it really did was it gave me confidence. Like, okay, I can do this. I'm good at it. And this is super valuable to people. So that was really like what I needed to like step out and apply for those high dollar freelance positions.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I more than doubled my income. For sure.
That's amazing. I love to hear that. Yeah, as you were going in and diving into the modules, the training, what were you thinking? Because compared to the writing that you had already been doing, how did the training strike you?
I would say it just was like, I had been doing the writing and figuring it out on my own. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. I was already instinctively doing this, and this could level me up. So it was just the perfect time for me to find this and really amp up my skills.
Yeah, get some vocab to put to the tactics that you were already doing. I feel like it's hard. It's like, oh, that's what that is. That's a feature. I didn't know that I was avoiding, but that's what that is.
Yeah, exactly. Facebook ads is like, oh, tweak it that way. Yeah, it's just like, it was just all these little things that I could just like, it just was a total level up for me.
So what do you, because you dove in and you took action. And clearly, because you have been so successful in such a short period of time, what do you credit that to? Is that something that has been innate for you, or?
Yeah, I would say a little bit of that is just my personality. Like once I commit to something, it's that whole, like anything that's worth doing is worth doing right. That whoever said that, I don't know, but I really jive with that. It's like, just you bought the program, just commit to it and make it happen, because you have the skills that you need. And maybe you've been writing for 10 years, it's going to level you up, or maybe you're just starting. And I really have noticed in my writing career, like, oh, I was such a slow writer at the beginning, just like it was like a labor of love, I guess you'd say. And I'm just so much faster now. But I've been writing for over 10 years now. So that it's not like there's like a magic wand, like this program is work. And I think you say it in the program, like no one's going to hand you this. This isn't a get rich quick. This is exactly the tool you need. Here's the hammer, here's the board, build something beautiful. So just get after it, commit to it.
I love that. Yeah.
We need that as our ringtone. Yeah. Commit to it.
Yes. Yeah. And I had taken so much time. It wasn't like my typical go-to, I would say, when I'm not watching myself, is just try this, do that, see what works. But like I just, in that season, and if you think about the time period, it was January, February, March, and here I'm looking for things. And then April 6th, I finally found this thing. And so I would say if you haven't purchased a program yet, give yourself a minute, step back, and really think about it. Like, if this is where your next step is, give yourself some time to process it. And if it is, then just dive in head first, because you spent the time thinking about it. Make it happen. So.
And I love what you said about, being so much faster now, because really what we're doing is learning something completely new. So our brains have to start to be trained to think in certain ways. And once they are, you start to realize, oh, wow, my brain's just automatically coming up with these ideas, coming up with these concepts, but you're rewiring things. You're learning new ways to look at things you've looked at or maybe not looked at before.
Yeah, for sure. I can remember, probably 9 years ago, I was going to do some writing for someone, probably copywriting, didn't realize it was called that. And she's like, well, how fast are you? And she's trying to figure out, because neither one of us knew. And I was like, well, I don't know. I think I'm kind of slow, but like, what do you base that on? So, I don't know. But it is helpful to just like watch yourself, like, okay, I ended up doing this much research. I ended up sitting down and writing for this long. And then the editing took me this long. You start to get that innate feel for it. So. I'm sure you guys both have experienced that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's interesting that your client asked that, like, well, how fast are you? Because it's easy to forget that clients don't know the right questions to ask either. We always talk about how one of the first things clients are always going to ask is, well, how much does it cost? Well, I can't tell you how much it's going to cost because we haven't had a conversation about the project yet, but, and clients think, all right, well, cost and speed and obviously cost is always a factor for anybody hiring someone, but it's not speed so much as quality. And even if you had stayed quote unquote slow, which again, what does that even mean? But just as compared to, okay, you've gotten faster, but even if you had stayed slow, it's about the quality, right? If you are doing great work for your clients and they're seeing amazing results and they are happy, that's where the win is.
For sure. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like we have to slow ourselves down. Like, I love what you said earlier about taking the time to really sit and think about your decision before taking action, because I feel like if you are one of those people that's prone to just taking action, sometimes you do need that little bit to say, okay, let me take a beat.
Yes.
And then go on with whatever it is you need to do.
Yeah.
And so I know we always ask for advice for someone who's interested in getting into copywriting, but for CCA students, what advice do you have specifically for them?
Yeah, one thing I would say is just a real big emphasis on the fact that your website really is important. When I'm going to hire copywriters, I absolutely look at that website and I get a feel for their writing, and it might be great writing, but not quite what I was looking for. I use that as part of my process of hiring. And if you have a website, I know you have already leveled up, you're interested in learning things, you've done that. And so that's already, to me, a good thing. And so when I was putting together my website, going through the program, I definitely took advantage of the coaching calls. And I would say, do that. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and you get one-on-one time with experts. I submitted everything I possibly could, and the feedback was just super valuable. And when I was hired as a freelancer, my boss said, I looked at your website. It was really great. And so don't underestimate the value of that. I would also say don't overcomplicate it. It doesn't, just dive in, take it step by step. You don't have to hire like $10,000. When I'm looking at a copywriter's website, I'm not looking for like a beautiful experience necessarily. I'm looking at what they have written, and I need to just be able to easily click in, look real quick, and glance over that. So definitely do that.
Absolutely.
Good advice.
And now you are managing copywriters. So knowing that you're talking to people who are copywriters or are learning, or what tips the tips that you give the copywriters that you manage, what tips can you offer our listeners, our viewers?
In general, my favorite copywriters to work with are the ones who make my life the easiest. Like, that's just human nature. So yes, I need to expect myself to give them good context of our company and of this project specifically. but also I just like really need you to do your research. I'm not going to hand you everything. And I worked side by side with people, and I've employed people who are like, they're just not giving us enough information. And it's like, yeah, because you have to meet halfway. So do your research. Like when I talk to you as a copywriter, I want to feel like you know my company, like you're all in, and to the extent that you're capable as a new person, you have tried to learn about my company and that you value them. So so
And if you
that would be
need something, ask.
yes.
That,
Yes.
well, they're not giving it to us. Well,
Hmm.
okay. If you know what you need, have you
Yes.
asked for what you need? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that's another thing too. I think don't be afraid to ask for just like 15 minutes of time, because sometimes back and forth emails take more time for all of us than just like, let's hop on a call or Zoom 15 minutes and get this figured out. So I would say that, and truly what you said is just don't be afraid to ask, because I might not think about that. I might be like, oh my gosh, you're sending me the 25th question, and I just like really needed you to get this to me tomorrow. And so if I'm not giving you what you need, ask, because I need you to be productive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. The one of the one of my least favorite phrases that I ever hear is, well, I didn't know.
Yes.
Like I remember years ago, I worked with someone who we would get into the creative review, and we'd say, well, but you didn't include any of this, and we talked about, well, yeah, but I didn't know how to do that, or well, I didn't know where to get that, or well, I didn't know. Okay, well,
Yes.
ask, find
Yes.
out. You're not sitting alone by yourself, and you've
Yeah.
had all this time. Yeah, I think there's being a partner in the process, and being someone who makes your life easier. And I think that's a great point that I want to make sure to metaphorically underline, is that, I guess, kind of a little bit of a pun, but is that so much of it is just doing extra thinking to make your bosses or your client's life a little bit easier. And not, I don't mean like send them presents or anything, like, but if you haven't checked in with them for a while, just shoot them an email to be like, hey, just wanted to let you know, making a progress. We're totally set for the deadline. Like, of course you're set for the deadline. You're a professional, but like, just let them know. Let
Yes.
them know that you're on top of it, and
Yeah.
be a proactive thinker instead of just someone who is producing copy. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, you'd mentioned earlier that you said that you used to love to write when you were younger.
Hmm.
Do you remember when or how that kind of got away from you?
Yeah, I have thought a bit about that. I won a writing contest in sixth grade.
Oh,
I thought, oh, I got to go meet an author. It was spectacular.
that's cool.
Oh, it was so fun. But then you get to high school and it's like, well, okay, like, how do you make money?
Mm-hmm.
So it was, of course, I grew up in the 90s, I was graduating 2000. And so there, there was no online publishing. There were a few people that struck it rich. And I just never believed that I would be one of those. So I had to get a real job. So I went to college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I ask because frankly, I kind of suspected that might have been the story, because I feel like
Yeah.
so many of us loved to write as kids and really enjoyed it and demonstrated a talent and a skill for it. And whether we literally heard it, which actually I did, from a friend's uncle, or whether we just kind of somehow it came into us by osmosis or something, but the idea that you can't make money as a writer. And I think for so many of us that thought, oh, I like this, I could do this, to have that desire and hope shut down can be really hard to bounce back from. So good for you for exploring this area.
Yeah. Well, it kind of happened by accident. Like I think I would have it's interesting to think about, my son's illness totally changed the trajectory of my life. And I would have never, I don't see myself having gone back to it until I just sort of fell into it. So it's interesting to look at things in hindsight.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes the paths don't exactly make sense until you look back
Yeah.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to a student last night at the local high school. My husband's a principal and there was a basketball game, and she had gone to college and she had come back and she's like, "Oh, I don't know what I want to do. So I don't want to waste money on college." And I'm like, "Girl, I did not figure it out until I was like 35. So like you might pick something and it might be the wrong thing. It might be the wrong thing, and then just go from there. You'll figure it out." So
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. I feel like there are very few people who are actually working in the industry that they went to college for.
yes, yeah, especially our generation.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
I was trying to look up the statistic the other day for a client project. And I think it's something like over 50% or something ridiculous. Like it's a high percentage of people who just aren't using their degree.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
I'm not either. I didn't know myself very well in my early 20s. Like, how could I ever pick?
I feel like looking back last year, I'm like, wow, I've really
Yeah.
grown up.
Yeah, it's true. And if we haven't, how sad, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
good to look back and see that growth and change.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm curious to hear about your current role. And because you work with other copywriters and have to give feedback, I feel like feedback is such a So what advice, I guess, do you have for receiving feedback, but then also any tips on how you give feedback to the writers you're working with? So what can copywriters what should they think about when they're getting that feedback?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say the course itself helped me know how to hire and work with these copywriters. So that's been really interesting to be able to take some of that, what I learned be on the other side of it. In general, I just feel like I've been writing for so long. I would like my writing was so close to my heart when I started that if anybody said anything about it and I was so insecure, I think that I would be like, "Oh no, I'm not very good." And now it's like I just have been writing so long to understand that good editing is a part of the process of good writing, and just to sort of like release that emotion, like it's not an emotional attack, you know. And also honestly, like people have different opinions about commas, and just because they think it's that and you think it's this, like it's not black and white, it's not math. And so just to remember that, even if someone, like sometimes someone would take a word out or be like, "Why did we have this?" And it's like, well, okay, well, that was their opinion. It's very subjective, and that's okay. I thought it was good in the time, maybe sometimes I'm like, "Oh, yeah, good point," because I edit my writing. And that's what I try to tell the copywriters that I hire. Like, I'm going to edit your writing like I would edit my own. And this is probably actually a weakness. Every time I look at anything I've written, I edit it. It's like, it could never be done. I could edit till the day I die on any single piece of work, I think. And so I think that's something I need to learn though, actually, is how to give more gentle feedback, because to me it's like, okay, like I'm here in this journey, and so I constantly try to remind myself, yeah, but when you're first starting out, like think how tender you were. And so one thing I've actually asked my coworkers, like, okay, and I have so many opinions because this is like my thing, and I'm like, you're giving very gentle feedback. Help me understand how you're doing that. And so they said, well, sometimes when I see something, I'll ask it as a question, like, what if we used a different word, or what if we didn't use this, or could you reword this? So asking things as a question instead of saying this needs to change, or just like deleting it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm not sure we can.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, just to go into that a little bit, I think, they will always say, we'll start with something positive. And
Yes.
even just saying like, "Hey, thanks for sending this through. This is a great start." It doesn't even have to be like, "I love how you did this." It is a great start, great place to have us get started. And then talking about, digging into, okay, well, yeah, I'm wondering about this word choice here. Could it be something more XYZ? Or can you give me a little insight as to why you made this choice?
Yes.
Or per the brief, I'm thinking we want to go a little bit more in this direction. Can I see some options along those lines? I think, it's for me, I have found in giving feedback, it's you still needs to be clear. Obviously, you don't want to talk around it so much that people think that they're like, "Oh, I think I did a really great job. They can't see the feedback for all of the fluff, but taking it, instead of going directly at change this, the benefit's not strong enough, blah, 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 kind of coming at it from the side of, I'm looking at this benefit, I'm looking at the brief, and I think we can dig in and make it a little bit stronger. Can you send me a few more versions? Let me know if you have any questions. Yeah. So take that for what it's worth.
I love that. That's helpful. And also, I think one thing, going back to your question, Kate, of what I would tell other people is, remember when someone gives you feedback, it might not be about you. It might be about them, and they're very busy, or they're just haven't learned how to give feedback in the most constructive way. And so I would say, just give yourself a beat to remember, this might not be about me or my writing.
Exactly.
So it's 100% not about you. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and also too, clients or bosses, unless you are working for a copywriter, the way that your writers are, unless you're working for a copywriter, they're not as skilled at writing as you are. And if the feedback is coming through written, they may not know how exactly to convey, and they may not know how to convey it with the right emotion, or they may not know how not to be super direct and or they may not know how to be direct. So there is always going to be that element of kind of educating a client, as well as going, okay, let me take a step, like you said, take a beat and go, okay, I see how this is coming through, but I also see how they communicate in other ways. And I know that this is not about me. This is not something, they're not angry because they sent this email yesterday and they sent this in this way. And I didn't take it personally then when they were super direct. So taking that moment to have the self-knowledge to know, okay, I'm not going to take this personally now, because this is just how they communicate. Yeah.
Yes. And I've definitely learned, and I'm sure writers have experienced this or learned it on their own too, but it's like when you get really harsh editing, it is so helpful to just like literally close your computer and step away for a day or a weekend. And then sometimes you can come back to it and be more analytical about it and dive back in. But if you're in a really emotional state and you're looking at the edits, that's not super productive, I have found, for myself.
Totally.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I love what you said too, just that it is editing, and to remember that whether it is a copywriter or someone else with no writing background, they're not coming at it from the same perspective as you. They're wearing a different hat, right? They're not wearing they're trying to wear a copywriter hat, but remembering that, yes, we're working on it. We're collaborating on a copywriting project, but you are still the copywriter, and they're coming with different opinions from a non-copy background.
Yes. I've had people try to convince me of very funny things. Like, I don't think it's actually like a comma before quotation marks or something. I'm like, well, that's usually how it's done.
You're like, there's actually a guide for this. This is pretty black and white.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious about your role, since it is full-time, but are you fully remote, or are you going to an office? What does that look like?
Yeah, I'm fully remote.
Amazing.
I live in Nebraska, and then my office is in Atlanta. So remote, manage a team remote. It's really a nice balance for me. I've been working from home for, again, a long time. I'm starting to make myself sound old, but I love to work remote. I'm highly motivated, and it's just like the perfect balance, because I have older kids, and so I can be here for them, but they don't necessarily want me to be with them. And so yeah, all remote, and it's incredible. I actually applied for the job and interviewed, and even when I came on full time for the company, I hadn't met them in person yet. I'd been working with them freelance, and then in my role for 6 months, and then I went to the office. So I go to the office, like, I'd say every other month I fly down there. But when I met them, I was like, man, it's like I was watching a reality TV show, and now I get to be on the set. It was bizarre, because I'm with them all the time on Zoom. We're constantly Zooming, meeting, everything. Yeah. So yeah, remote. But I do really value the ability to be on a team, and even though I'm remote, and so that constantly Zooming and things has been really great for me.
So I'm curious with working remote, do you have any tips for folks who are working remote to get down to work, to actually focus, to schedule their day? What are some of the ways that you make it work for you?
I think there's like the tips you've heard all the time, like have a separate working space. Da, 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 da. Well, I worked from my couch for like a very long time. It was only when I got the full-time job and I was like, okay, I just really need a place to go. So I would say listen to yourself. And if you need a place to go, then create one in whatever space you can. But if you want to write from the couch, like when I am writing creatively, I either have to be able to see outside or preferably sit outside. And so I would say figure out for yourself, like, don't just follow like, like everyone's like early bird gets a worm. Like figure out when you're most creative, where you're most creative, and just like lean into your own individuality. I would say, people be like, oh, well, I just get up and do laundry. I guess I don't have a problem with ignoring the laundry. Just ignore it. It'll be there. Or guess what? Like you are supposed to get up from your desk every hour. So get up and go get a drink of water and flip out the laundry. That's the nice thing about freelance or salary positions is you really own your time. And so figure out what makes you productive and then lean into that further and further. You'll figure out yourself as you go.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Yeah. It's all just really, really helpful, Jenni. I think, people are going to really enjoy this episode. My kind of not final, but wrap up question really is, if someone were interested in getting into copywriting, maybe someone who similarly used to love writing as a kid and thought, oh, you can't make any money as a writer, what advice would you give them?
Well, do your research, give yourself some time to figure out what direction you might want to go. But I would say the biggest thing is don't be afraid to invest in yourself, to invest in this course. I've taken different courses online throughout my career, and it's like I have a college degree, and that was a wonderful foundation. But in 2011, I did my first online course, which was awesome for my career at that time where I was going. And then I took another course and it leveled me up. And now I took CCA and just have learned so much and I'm making so much more money. And I look back over the time and I think, oh, maybe 10 years ago it was an online course, but now I'm like, this can truly change your life. This can change what you make. This can change your confidence level and understanding you have those skills, or maybe just giving you a starting point to know I'm going to start here and this is how I'm going to get there. And this is a roadmap that I have. So I would say just don't count yourself out and understand that sometimes you need a little help to level up.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, Jenni, thank you so much for chatting with us today. This was fantastic. I know there are a ton of gems that people have to go back and re-listen to and take notes on. But thank you so much for sitting down with us. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. It was wonderful to have a chance to talk to you.
And so with that, thank everyone for listening and watching, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Like what you heard? Hit subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're ready to take the first step toward becoming a copywriter yourself, sign up for a free video training right here.